they tried to become the Southwest of Australia, and in some cases, well, Southwest has been financially incredible till the last 2 years. In a surprising turn of events, Australia's third domestic carrier and a special favourite of my co-host, Rex, went from purportedly being a viable airline to voluntary administration in the space of about 2 weeks. Rex was created in 2002 when former Ansett employees bought regional carriers Hazelton Airlines and Kendall Airlines out of the collapsed Ansett rump. Ansett himself famously died in September 2001, and the airline was initially called Australia-wide Airlines before being renamed Regional Express in 2005 and floated on the ASX. It was never a particularly valuable airline, with its market cap hovering around the few $100 million range, and it largely was funded by the governments as a niche carrier until 2020. At that point, Rex was handed $60 million in government largesse as a result of the COVID debacle, and at the same time decided to take on Qantas and Virgin on the Golden Triangle, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane route. Rex secured 6 ex-Virgin 737s and tried to compete on 3 of the world's most lucrative routes. Alas, like Compass, Tiger, Ansett and Impulse before it, Rex failed dismally, losing millions of dollars of shareholder and investor money, and of course taxpayer money, and leaving tens of thousands of travellers scrambling for alternatives. Adir, how sad are you from this?
By the way, Compass 1 and Compass 2.
Compass 2.
2
There's
Compasses
other ones as
failed,
well.
right?
Yeah.
So this is a sad story.
It is.
I mean, I've been thinking a lot about what went wrong and posted on LinkedIn, and there seems to be a
Post on LinkedIn? Oh, it's shocked.
There seems to be a universal view that they basically just didn't do marketing. And so every time I said to someone, you should take Rex on this like Melbourne, Sydney, Sydney, Melbourne, people were like, do they fly that route? And then if they've even heard of Rex, they would say, it's like Jetstar, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I just think...
Same terminal.
Terrible positioning, no marketing, but they were still pretty full of flights.
Cheap. It's not cheap.
Well, they were the same price as Virgin.
Were they?
For most
I thought more expensive than Virgin.
No, they were the same price.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think like maybe their problems were... This is what I think. Maybe you can't cover the fixed cost of your planes flying so few flights between capital cities because their planes were pretty busy.
Okay.
The Gold Coast, they couldn't get slots really, and so they were basically flying one flight in the middle of the day or 2 flights in. And really, if you're going to be relied upon by business travelers, you've got to fly at least a morning and an evening flight to get in both directions. So I just feel like... You know, they had a bit of an ACCC complaint about Qantas in 2020, which was not upheld. But let's say even that was correct because Qantas and Virgin are not doing any favours to another airline. And the slot situation at Sydney
do you know who determines who the slots?
They do.
Yeah, Qantas and Virgin own the slot. It's ridiculous.
You know, and so, like, I think that's true, but they could have anticipated that they weren't going to get a warm welcome from Qantas and Virgin. So that's no excuse. I don't know. To me, they were the friendliest airline. Yeah. They were for sure the most on-time airline.
Yeah, although they tried to become the Southwest of Australia, and in some cases, Southwest has been financially incredible till the last 2 years, but clearly Rex wasn't.
They couldn't fly enough flights, I think. And I have to say, like, there was to me, it was so obvious what their pitch was. It was, if you think about the way life happens outside the cities, like it is, people are at places on time.
Yeah.
Unlike me. People are friendly. That's just the way of life. And there's good value. And like all of those things they brought to like their airline that was flying intercity routes. So I think it's terribly sad to me that they collapsed. But like you'd have to say the odds were not in their favour because of all of the things that you've said. And maybe structurally this country's got problems supporting a third airline flying the main intercity routes. And maybe despite the fact that, you know, Melbourne, Sydney is now, I think, the most flown route in the world.
I think it's number 5, but I think it's most by revenue.
Most by revenue. Yeah. Like the thing is the way that...
There's a couple of Korean routes. That
I think probably Singapore, KL would be up there or Singapore, Bangkok or something.
They're weird routes. It's not routes you think of.
Right.
It's China, something in China.
There'll be short routes between very populated cities. But the thing is, maybe the way the industry is structured in Australia just does not facilitate another airline.
Not when Qantas and Virgin own the slot company.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think it's very disappointing. I will say, I know someone that was stuck. In fact, I know 2 people that were stuck with a Rex flight on the morning that they stopped flying. One was my parents, and they quickly bought a Virgin frequent flyer flight and got themselves up to the Gold Coast. Amazing, right? Day. And the other person I know, interestingly, they contacted the line to get a Virgin flight, and they said, we'll get back to you in 3 days. And they're like, I need it now. Yeah. And then they saw on LinkedIn that Qantas said, which I would say almost gaslighting, saying, oh, poor Rex, we'll try and help out,
Yeah, totally gaslighting.
And if you missed a Rex, if you had a Rex flight, we'll give you a Qantas flight. So they just rang up the Qantas call centre and said, you wrote this on LinkedIn. And they got a Qantas flight given to them, and then they got the Virgin flight 3 days later, so they ended up with 2 flights. And so, I think, basically Qantas probably doesn't care much about this, but it would be good for Virgin. I think Virgin would have lost a bit of revenue.
Absolutely great. Qantas probably want them running because the regional stuff saves them having to do it. I think that the writing was always on the wall with Rex, because even the last 2 years been airlines have these golden windows every sort of 15, 20 years. And this has been the goldenest of golden windows for airlines. The cost of air travel is out of control and has come down in some routes internationally, but certainly domestically it's as high as it's ever been. Yeah. And Rex still couldn't make money. So if you can't make money in this the goldest of golden windows, the golden Holden of golden windows, and you're never going to make money. So they were always, I didn't think it would happen this quickly, but it's happened super
And maybe
quickly.
the government will rescue the regional stuff, but this is my view.
I think the government will take a stake.
Maybe.
And this is what Morrison...
What New Zealand did with their New Zealand.
Morris and Josh's biggest debate, they had many incredibly stupid things they did during COVID, but not taking... They could have owned 40% of Qantas for the amount of money. They just gave it to them. Yeah. And inexplicably, I actually asked Josh one thing, he didn't have an answer at all that was even semi-coherent, but... probably Morrison's fault more than his.
He could have owned 40% of Virgin.
100% of Virgin. Yeah. It was just, they just gave taxpayer dollars hand off this without any kind of responsibility.
But if you were the government, I just want to say this. I'm not sure if you'll agree with this, because I don't think you'll be.
Whenever you say that, I never
You won't
agree.
be able to bring yourself to agree, even though in your heart you will agree. If you're the government, if you let Qantas go broke, you will not be the government after the next election. Whereas if you let any other airline go broke,
let Virgin go broke.
That will not be the case. And so I think the government has an overwhelming electoral...
So when you say let Qantas go broke, and Qantas clearly...
Well, if they wouldn't have given that largesse to them in COVID...
They weren't flying in COVID, so nobody would have been... Well, they were flying a bit domestically.
It doesn't matter. If they would have let them... If Qantas would have gone... If Qantas would have had a Virgin experience...
When you say go broke, I think the description is wrong. Why? Because... Going broke is fine. As long as operationally the airline keeps running, I don't think customers care. What they don't want is the airlines be grounded. But that was never... there's a difference between equity holders being wiped and debt holders being wiped and a company ceasing to operate. We have chapter 7, chapter 11
maybe I'll
here.
say this in that's a good point. I'll say this in a different way. A very bad Qantas experience for Australians has the potential to cost the government votes. And if it gets bad enough... But
it already was bad. During COVID, Qantas, we saw it happen, and Vanessa's brought it back, but it was terrible.
Notice the government got pretty involved at that point in time because...
But not equity-wise.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is...
I would have let it go and bought it for nothing.
The Qantas brand...
Got rid of Joyce and get Vanessa in.
When it's doing badly, if the Qantas brand does really badly, either terrible service, or let's say it had to be rescued, because it's a private company, that has the ability... to electorally affect the government of Australia.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I think it
affected the government when Qantas' service was so bad. People started blaming the government. Why are you not doing something about it?
No, I think I blamed Alan Joyce, and he was the most hated man, justifiably.
That's true.
No one hated Albanese.
Why was the government so vocal about Qantas when they were performing so badly in customer service?
Because when you ask any journo, they write an article on Qantas, gets double the clicks. Qantas is the ultimate clickbait for Australian customers.
Why is the government talking so much about it and criticising Qantas and getting involved so publicly?
It wasn't getting involved. How did it get involved?
Well, the Minister for Transport had a comment every day about the situation.
No, that was trying to defend itself after the Qatar debacle.
The Qatar thing. So maybe I'll say this about Rex. I'll tell you what I was hoping for, which will very much surprise you and will expose the severe... We'll expose something that I understand externally will look like severe hypocrisy, but in my own mind makes perfect sense. So I was hoping Qatar would come in and buy Rex, including the intercity routes.
They still might.
To do, is it called Interline, when you go and you bring someone in and then you can transfer them to
cabotage, I think it's called.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, when you go from one to another city, like Melbourne
so Qatar could land in Sydney and then they could say, we've got a stake in Rex, so we'll just put Rex on the same ticket to get to Melbourne.
I think it's called cabotage as well, but Interline could be another way of describing it.
And so I thought and think that would be a great deal for Qatar. They can't get into this market, right?
Well, that's why they're going to buy Virgin. The exact reason.
And so if Qatar bought Rex and kept the intercity stuff going,
Yeah.
I would happily fly it. And the reason is, this is why I'm going to say it's not hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's because it's entirely employing Australians in Australia. It's just ownership, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I would that's what I was hoping and hope will happen.
Someone will buy them because
But they've leased their 737s to, the leases have changed now to Virgin. They don't have the planes anymore. Yeah, 4 of the planes.
I had 6, right?
4 of their 737s
They still have to.
have gone to
if you're
Virgin.
Qatar, they got planes. They don't have to worry about planes.
Yeah, but
they can ship them over.
their administration might have lost them the slots.
Oh, I don't know. I think that's the most valuable asset they have.
Yeah.
And especially when now, I think the one thing Catherine King has done well is now that there's been a long running white paper that basically, and this is not a criticism of Labor because Liberal was just as bad, but both parties just sat on this like ministers for Qantas, right? They just let Qantas do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
And Virgin jumped in the tailwind. Now I think they're being forced to, and it would be great if the government has to take a stake in Rex, because suddenly they're not going to be Qantas's bitch anymore, because whatever Qantas wants, it gets.
They're not going to act on slots, I don't think.
You don't think they acted on it?
No.
I think the pressure's amping up now.
Well, the media cycle
There is a bit of too
hardness.
There is a bit of too hardness about it for sure, and they're
it's-
going to protect Qantas at all costs.
And it's arcane and nobody knows. And until, I think I have some understanding of this industry. And until a week ago, I didn't even know there was a slots company.
Well,
I didn't know
it's not that arcane to understand that the person who benefits from something shouldn't be the one who decides it.
Well, because you're in the industry, but how many people even knew or know that there's a company that dishes out slots at Sydney Airport and they're controlled by Virgin and Qantas?
Yeah, well, even more or equally outrageous is, when the whole Qatar thing was basically bilateral airline discussions. So the government, you have an open skies agreement where anybody can fly whenever they want, but Australia often has bilateral. So us and Qatar is a bilateral, and hence why the government was so easily able to say, Qatar, tough luck. And when Turkish came in, they did the bilateral there. Who sits in on them? And historically, Qantas would sit in with the minister on the bilaterals. It was outrageous. No other company in Australia does this in anything, but Qantas sits next to whoever the hell, with Albanese when he was doing it.
I don't think the slots are going to change. No one's going to. No one understands it.
I think it's becoming more.
No one's going to remember it in 2 weeks. The news cycle will move on. And what are they going to do? An inquiry? Can you think of a more boring inquiry?
They're about to launch a white paper.
What's a white paper? I mean, it's so boring. It's all so
on.
boring. Yeah. I don't think it will change. I hope it does, but I don't think
you'll be right.
And who owns the terminal? Qantas's terminal in Sydney and Virgin's terminal in Sydney are owned by Sydney Airport Corporation or whatever it's called.
Wherever. Qantas
owned by some global, just got sold not long ago.
Owned by PE, I think.
Yeah, by PE.
Yeah.
And so they just lease that terminal. And so when they go and do lounge improvements, are they doing leasehold improvements to their own lounge?
Yeah. And I think they have a very long-term lease on that.
Yeah.
Probably 100 years or whatever it is.